Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblyman Miller. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Chair Watts.
And I'm present. Thank you. Please mark Assemblywoman Gallant as absent excused. We do have a quorum. Members, we have 3 bills on our agenda for work session. We will do our work session first. Then we have 3 bills that we'll be hearing. We will take them roughly in order. We're definitely going to hear Senate Bill 59 first, and then we'll take it from there. So that is what we have on our agenda. A couple of quick housekeeping items. If you plan on speaking, please do sign in at the table in person. If you'd like to provide testimony or public comment by phone, you can find the call-in information to do so on our agendas, which are also posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. We'll ask anyone making public comment, which will be at the end of our meeting, to limit their remarks to 2 minutes. Anyone speaking, please be sure to clearly state and spell your name for the record before you begin speaking, and state your name again for the record every time before you speak. So with that, we will begin with our work session, and we'll go in order. We'll start with Senate Bill 27, and with that, I will turn it over to our policy analyst.
Thank you, Chair Watts. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Excited to be here with the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure today. The work session document should be in front of you. The first bill is Senate Bill 27. It expands the definition of excavation to include the movement or removal of earth, rock, or other material in or on the ground using non-mechanical equipment operated by a contractor or any person if the movement or removal of earth, rock, or other material in or on the ground occurs more than 12 inches below the surface of the original ground line. Additionally, the bill revises the definition of emergency to provide that the types of immediate action that may be required by an emergency include the use of non-mechanical equipment to determine the severity or spread of an underground leak, or in situations where an excavation is imminent and a subsurface installation is unable to be located to locate the subsurface installation. There is also a definition of non-mechanical equipment in Section 3, and it makes various conforming changes throughout the bill to replace the term hand tools with the term non-mechanical equipment. There were no amendments presented in the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this bill? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to do pass Senate Bill 27.
So moved.
I've got a motion from Vice Chair Brown-May. Second from Assemblyman Gurr. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. And I will assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Gurr. We'll move on to Senate Bill 66.
Thank you, Chair Watts. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 66 disqualifies an individual from operating a commercial motor vehicle for a period of time if the person is convicted of certain offenses, including a lifetime disqualification if the person is convicted of using a motor vehicle or commercial motor vehicle in the commission of certain offenses. The bill revises the acts that constitute certain crimes related to holding a person in involuntary servitude. The bill also revises provisions governing the behavior of commercial motor vehicles near railroad grade crossings and other provisions related to commercial driver's licenses to comply with federal laws and to conform with federal definitions. The bill prohibits an employer from allowing, requiring, permitting, or authorizing a person to operate a commercial motor vehicle under certain circumstances. And finally, the bill revises the circumstances in which the Department of Motor Vehicles will furnish information regarding a person's driving record to certain other jurisdictions. There were no amendments presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. Members, any questions on this bill? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to do pass from Assemblywoman Dickman. Do I have a second? Second from Assemblywoman Peters. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. And I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Peters. Next, we'll consider Senate Bill 422.
Thank you, Chair Watts. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 422 establishes requirements governing the operation of a personal delivery device, a PDD, operated autonomously, semi-autonomously, or remotely, and is intended to transport cargo on pedestrian walkways and in designated areas, including the Nevada System of Higher Education campuses, offices, and associated facilities. In addition, the bill authorizes the city or county to enact ordinances that regulate the time, place, and manner of operation of personal delivery devices. There is an amendment on this proposed for Senate Bill 422. It was proposed by Misty Grimmer of the Nevada Resort Association, and it limits the scope of the bill so that the personal delivery devices may only be operated at an institution within the Nevada System of Higher Education, and that it may utilize directly adjacent sidewalks or crosswalks while servicing an institution within the Nevada System of Higher Education.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. Members, any questions on this measure? Assemblywoman Dickman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say I actually kind of liked this bill before the amendment, but I still support this because I think it's a good start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 422.
So moved.
I've got a motion from Vice Chair Brown-May, second from Assemblywoman Dickman. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. And I will take that floor statement. All right, that concludes our work session. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the bill hearings that we have scheduled for today. And I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 59, which revises provisions relating to vessels. And welcome the Department of Wildlife to the table. Thank you for joining us today. Whenever you're ready, just please remember to state and spell your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. For the record, name is Brady Phillips, B-R-A-D-Y, last a P-H-I-L-L-I-P-S. I'm a captain with Nevada Department of Wildlife's Law Enforcement Division. I'm currently our interim boating law administrator for the state, so I'll be presenting today, but I will allow my partners here to go down the line and introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Gimorn Christy Knight, Chief of Law Enforcement out of Reno. My spelling of my name is K-R-I-S-T-Y, K-N-I-G-H-T. Thank you.
And I'm Kaylee Musso, for the record, K-A-I-L-E-Y-M-U-S-S-O, and I'm our legislative liaison.
For the record, Brady Phillips, again. So we have a PowerPoint up on the screen for you to look at as we go through. It'll just hit the highlights of some of these bills. We can go to slide 2, please. So the main overarching of this is to catch up on some federal regulation and definitions that we need to change so that we're on board with Coast Guard standards and some international standards as well. So some of the big differences you will see throughout here are those first two items that are life jacket terminology and engine cutoff switch terminology, going away from personal flotation devices to life jackets because that's internationally changing and how they're labeling life jackets. And then the engine cutoff terminology is actually a standard the Coast Guard is setting out across the U.S., and we have already had an audit exception based on how our wording is. So the wording in this bill has been drafted with the Coast Guard and their attorneys to make sure it fits the verbiage that is required on the federal side, especially with the grant that we received for recreational boating safety. The second one is, again, to update the definitions and types of vessels. So we're going from a vessel such as motor-driven to power-driven, or from motor vessels to power-driven or sailing vessels, just to give a broader description of what they are and actually set the federal mandate and federal standard for definitions on those. The next one is regarding abandoned vessels. This primarily affects us in Nevada down on the Colorado River, but it could be effective anywhere in the state. The language in the bill clears up some issues we have had on removing vessels from the water, especially on the river where wind or storm events blow them off docks along the river. The people are no longer in the area because they actually live in LA or other places, and we need the ability to remove them from the waterway. So this just clears up some of that language to allow us to do so in cases like that. It especially adds in public lands. There is a lot of BLM land and a lot of state parks lands that technically right now we have to let it sit for a while to allow the owner to come claim it, and it would be easier just to remove it from the waterway so it's not a hazard to anybody. Okay. The fourth one on our screen today is to remove the mandate regarding flashing blue lights. So this is a two-part aspect that has changed. The first part of this is that right now there is we shall remove any flashing blue lights from vessels on the water because they're supposed to identify law enforcement vessels. That wording is changed to a may to reduce that requirement on our officers to do so, especially with today's technology where LED lights, they can flip a button and changes the color to something that may be legal or just turn them off, so that we don't have to actually rip lights off of vessels anymore. The second part of this is to help with our officers. Currently, it says we can enact our blue lights only for law enforcement purposes. It's adding some verbiage in there for public safety events as well. If we're doing river closures, fireworks events, things of that nature, it just helps our protection on doing so. The second one, there is a loophole currently with our operation under the influence. So we have extremely similar language to DUI language that's in Chapter 484. The thing that is being added into this section is the underway clause. So when someone is operating a vessel, they can be on the water, not at anchor, adrift, and be intoxicated with no one who can actually drive that vessel. And technically it doesn't fit the definition on how OUI is defined right now. So adding in those words, if they're underway where the wind could blow them in or they could become operating that and crash into somebody, that we can still effect an arrest and deal with that issue. If they were at anchor, if they're beached up on the shore, they're in a slip or a dock, then it does not change anything because they're not actually in physical control or underway at that point. So the two new types of vessels being added into this bill are our hydrofoils and our surfboard. And those are being added because they're new technologies that have come on the market that our law doesn't address. And we're starting to see them on the lakes across the state in both a gas-powered and an electrical format. So this law will allow both of those to take place. The other side is the Coast Guard has put out a directive on how this is, and a lot of the verbiage used in here is based on the Coast Guard's directive. We already discussed the blue lights added protective. It's in that same bill, so I will skip over that one. And then the last bullet point on this was actually removed in the amendment, so it is no longer part of this, and it was just missed in this presentation. That is all I have for this bill, and I will answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll open it up to questions from members. All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move into testimony on Senate Bill 59. We'll begin with testimony in support. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 59, please come forward. Seeing nobody at this time, Broadcast Production Services, can we check and see if we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of SB 59 by phone?
There are no callers at this time.
All right, we'll move on to testimony in opposition of SB 59. Anyone wishing to testify in opposition in person, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this point in time, BPS, can we check the phones again?
There are no callers at this time.
All right, and finally, we will move to testimony in the neutral position on Senate Bill 59. And again, seeing nobody coming forward, BPS, has anyone joined us by phone?
There are no callers at this time.
All right, any closing remarks? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation today. With that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 59. And I believe we have Senator Harris on the way, so we're going to stand in a brief recess. All right, the committee will come back to order. Welcome, Senator. It's good to see you again. Chair Harris, I should say. Welcome back to the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. I will open the hearing on SB 423, which revises provisions relating to motorcycles. Welcome, proceed whenever you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Chair Watts, thank you all so much for taking some time to hear Senate Bill 423 today. I have with me Mr. David Banbez, who is a recent, as in like last week, graduate of the UNLV Med School. Go Rebels. Absolutely, absolutely. He reached out to me a few months before session started with an idea. He had noticed that a lot of his friends were out there riding their motorcycles, not always in the most cautious fashion, but often without taking the time to get an M endorsement. And so he decided he was going to study this problem. How prolific is it? How much more likely are you to be in a fatal accident if you don't have that M endorsement? And as you all can imagine, when working with the DMV, he ran into a couple of roadblocks in getting some of the data that he needed, but he didn't stop. He kept digging and kept talking. He talked to me. He talked to any safety committee he could think of. He talked to the DMV. We talked to the state police. And after months and months of diligent research and discussions and feedback, we have the bill that you see before you today, Senate Bill 423. And the bill consists of two parts. One, well, folks aren't getting their M endorsement. How can we make that happen, right? And so the first part of that bill is if you get caught riding your bike without an M endorsement, we're going to go ahead and tell you if you take that MSF safety course and get your endorsement, points gone, right? So that's the carrot. There is no stick, but that's the carrot. The second piece of the bill was related to something that he noticed in the data, and that was that there are a lot of older people riding motorcycles who aren't necessarily more dangerous in their riding, but for some reason we're still representing a larger portion of fatalities. And it turns out it's exactly what you would expect, right? You know, you Mr. Carter, get your M endorsement in your 20s, you kick your kids out in your 50s, and then you jump right back on that bike, right? But unfortunately, maybe you can't navigate those turns the same way that you could in your 20s, and we're seeing that there are a lot of older folks who unfortunately are getting into accidents basically because they're a little rusty. And so the second piece of the bill is designed to ensure that you go back and get a little bit of refreshing every now and again about judgment, about safety. Get back on the bike. We don't do this with cars, but that's because most of us drive our car every day, right? And that's not necessarily the case with a motorcycle. And so I think that this young man has come up with an ingenious way to make sure that Nevada, instead of being at the top of the list of fatalities for motorcycle riders as a percentage of all vehicle fatalities, down to the bottom of that list where our citizens deserve to be. I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a bit about his motivation and about the bill, and then I will discuss the amendment and we will stand for questions at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. Welcome, Mr. Bandes. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
What did I say for the record? All right, so Dave Bambaz for the record. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Dave Bambaz. I am a recent graduate from the Kirk Corrigan Medical School at UNLV. I also went to UNLV for undergrad. There's an old joke that UNLV means you never leave Vegas, but I'm leaving for the University of Utah for general surgery residency in July. I got into this motorcycle thing kind of by happenstance. I was 22. I got a military bonus because I signed on the HPSP for the Air Force to be a military doctor. And the first thing I wanted to do was to buy a motorcycle. And 6 months later, I broke my hand. I think it was mostly related to skill. I got my license through the MSF course. I knew other riders who did not get their license. They told me if they got pulled over, it'd be a slap on the wrist. So, when it came to me doing a research project at the medical school, they asked me what I would like to look into. I saw all these attendings who had different projects, but I wanted to look into this. The research showed me that nobody was looking into it. There's a lot of data on helmet, weather, bike size, but nobody's actually looking into like licensing and how to change that, and if the course is related to reducing fatalities. In fact, 36% of motorcycle fatalities across the country, at least in 2020, were unlicensed riders. Last year in Nevada, it was 44%, which is not good. People like to think that with motorcycle riders, it must be somebody else's fault. It must have been the weather, but nobody ever looks at the rider's skill level. Some stats. 97% of motorcycle fatalities happened in clear, not cloudy weather. 1/4 of motorcyclists that died hitting something hit a fixed object. This kind of pointed to me that maybe these riders are losing their skills. At 55 and up, that age group has been increasing in their fatalities by 37% over the last 10 years. If you get a forklift license, OSHA will make you retest every 3 years to show that you can still operate a forklift, but not for motorcycles. So I discussed with the DMV, the Nevada Highway Patrol, every committee I could talk to for safety, different trauma surgeons. And my solution was, how do we incentivize these riders to get a training course? And the solution might not be draconian, where you take the bike, you ticket them, because if you start to increase the punishment, the worry is that these riders are gonna drift off faster. Nevada has a no chase rule at 100 miles an hour. So, if we just make it easier for them, instead of just paying the fine, they're like, oh, I'll just take this class. It's 2 days, we'll get the license. Maybe this will increase the licensing amount, especially by younger people. And hopefully, this is a step in the right direction to decrease that 44% motorcycle fatality rate for unlicensed riders. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Bambas, for your presentation. Thank you for your commitment to utilizing your experience and your educational program to bring forward policies to try and improve public safety and public health in our state. And please do come back after you complete your residency. Senator Harris, would you like to address the amendment and make any additional remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions?
I would, Chair. Thank you so much. So I wanted to present the bill in its original form because I think that's what David deserves, and he's done a lot of really hard work. If you've done your research, you may have noticed that this bill came out of our body along party lines, and it is my belief that that was largely because of the retest requirement. And so I want to ensure that David gets a bill passed because he's worked very hard on it, not just get it passed, but get it signed. And so unfortunately, we have submitted an amendment to remove the retesting requirement at this time in hopes that it will make it more palatable for this body and for the ultimate signer of this bill. But that's what you have before you. It's not that we don't think that the retesting is a good idea or is needed. There is a weird thing about motorcycle endorsements never expiring even if you may not have been on a bike for 30, 40, 50 years. And so David has my commitment, this body has my commitment that we will come back and try and readdress that portion of this. But I think that that first piece will be extremely crucial to incentivizing people who currently are not licensed to go ahead and get that license, and not just through demonstrating their skill at the DMV, but by actually taking that safety course. And hopefully over time, we'll be able to collect the data needed to convince the folks we need to convince to join us in kind of re-looking at this idea of how often we require an online course or some type of retraining for those folks who have M endorsements. With that, Chair Watts, we'll stand for questions from the committee.
Thank you very much to both of you for the presentation. We'll move to questions from members. We'll start with Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is for you with welcome here, and yes, please come back to Nevada. You can choose wherever you'd like in Nevada, but just make sure it's in Nevada, okay? I'm not going to argue, but yes, in Nevada. And so my question is, and I know that the amendment to remove the retesting, but it's interesting what you say about the age of when we start to see more of a decline that results in more accidents. And so I'm saying this in a sensitive way because there's many people in this room. And I would say collectively as a whole, as a society, 55 is not what it was, okay? The Golden Girls were 55, and they by no way would be the standard of 55 today, right? And so I'm just wondering if in that data, if it's aggregated in a way, if we could see because when we say 55 or over, again, 50 years ago, 55 and over was only a few more years. Today, 55 and over could be another 40, 50 years easily. So is there somewhere where we see where that decline actually kicks in or starts to increase? You know, what's the difference between 55 and 65 or 65 and 75, 75 and over? Do we have those numbers?
Dave Bambas for the record. I submitted some papers. One is the Nevada Highway Traffic Safety Administration's traffic safety sheet for 2020, in that it actually does stratify them by age group for at least 2020. And there is an increase that starts around 35, and it actually... Sorry. So, in fact, I even submitted another study that said that under 30, it tends to be like more inexperience or behavior, and then over 30, you start to get that decline that you were talking about. Actually, 45 to 50 and 50 to 54 constitutes that peak. So after the 55, it starts to really go down, get a lot less riders. So the thought about this is that this is where a lot of people do get back into riding, and the first 6 months tends to be the most dangerous. In fact, there's another study I submitted where their fatality rate upon getting back into riding is very similar to the graph for a brand new rider riding. So it shows a rapid deterioration in skills. And then if you make it over that to about a year, then they typically plateau out. So it kind of shows how much skill is related to it. I can pull up the paper and I can give you the exact numbers too.
And Assemblywoman Miller, if the committee does not have that data, I will make sure that we follow up and get it to you all. Okay,
We
great.
do have that
Yeah,
information.
so if you find the graph, it should be by age and fatality rate.
Thank you very much.
Brief follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
So basically, according to that data, we're looking at two different things. It's not just the age and here's the increase. And again, I'll look at it because I'm looking at what is the percent of increase, you know, between age brackets. But you're also saying that it's the skill issue really comes to those people who pull themselves out and then get back in. It could be 20 years, 30 years later, and it's because their skills have just, you know, they're just a little rusty or whatever. And so that's another higher percent.
Dave Bambas for the record. Yeah, it's both. So the age group actually not 30 and up. Before it was under 30 was overrepresented at least 2 decades ago. But in the last 2 decades, it's been slowly increasing, and that's a quote straight from that fact sheet as well. So not only is the percentage of this group increasing in fatalities, but also it's because of their return. At least that's what some of the studies show. This is me correlating the two studies. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblyman Carter.
Yeah, and so as I was listening to the presentation, I was actually remembering about the MSF course and counter steering and the need to have heels on so you don't slide forward off the pegs, and about how that driving slow is more important than anything else. And then, and this is a recurring theme of mine since I think day one in here, then I get called out by my colleague, and I'm just wondering now, how much else data on me did DMV release to you about me?
You don't have to answer that question.
Yeah. Assemblyman, I will tell you, and hopefully this will make you feel better. The issue was not getting too much data from the DMV. Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you so much for the bill. So just a big picture for me to understand, I don't drive motorcycles, so you get your motorcycle permit and then you have the safety courses required initially.
Dave Bambas for the record. So you actually have two routes to getting a license or a motorcycle endorsement on your license. You can get a permit and then go take the skills test, but I'll just paint that picture because that was the first way I was about to get a license. I thought the permit would let me maybe ride on daytime roads. Maybe I could maybe get on a highway. Maybe I can practice in a parking lot by myself. I got the permit. I went home. I read the laws, and it was like you have to have somebody who has a motorcycle license for like a given time. You have to do it in a parking lot. They got to drive it to the parking lot. I was like, this is very difficult for a 22-year-old who's just trying to be impulsive. So I just, so I practiced safely. And then I discovered that you could also get the MSF course. So the DOT manages, or at least has oversight over these courses that they determine to be adequate in training somebody to get licensed. So you don't have to get the permit. When you get take the course, the first night is a classroom, and you take that permit test that night. And then the next 2 subsequent days are training. So you either can do the permit followed by a skills test at the DMV, which everyone has somebody else drive their motorcycle there for them, of course, maybe. Or you can just go take this course. So.
And Assemblywoman, if I may, I think the reason why your now colleague, Assemblywoman Newby, connected David and I is because she knew that I drove a motorcycle. And I don't think I hope there's no statute of limitations on this, but I will admit that I got a permit. I did not have a licensed rider following me around as I practiced, and I rode my motorcycle to the DMV to take the motorcycle exam. I failed it. So then I took the MSF course. That's right. There you go. And then I then took the MSF course to get the M endorsement. But of course, there was a period of time between that happening where I was out riding, right? And so I know that this is a very common story his experience rang very true to me because it was extremely similar.
Okay, so you either have to have an experienced rider or you get the endorsement. And then once you have that, currently, there is no requirement to have that endorsement test again. So what you're saying is if you get a violation, you can have the fees waived by taking the course again. So this is the carrot. And, or you're just encouraging people to take it regularly. But if you reach over a certain age group, you're saying we need you to take it every 7 years.
So thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Kasama. Dallas Harris for the record. Sorry, I've been horrible at that. What we were looking to do is to require everyone to get a refresher every 8 years so that there was just some kind of guarantee that you had re-looked at safety and judgment and were familiar with the bike. Originally, David's proposal did try and shift age brackets, where at a younger age you'd have to refresh a little more often. And then at the older age, we, bring in maybe every 8 or every 16 years or whatever was most convenient. We wanted to do it in increments of 4 or 8 in order to kind of tie it to when your driver's license expires, right? To make it as simple as possible. But I don't know if any of you have heard about the DMV's transformation effort. And it became a little difficult to try and actually get this done in a way where we could split age groups. And so the bill that you have before you just says everyone every 8 years.
Okay, and then could you clarify, because there's a lot of effective dates on the last page. How does that all tie into it?
Yes, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Kasama. Dallas Harris for the record. I know Ms. Dummer actually worked on this with me, and so if I mess it up, I'll have to kick it to her to correct me. But the goal of the effective dates, which, by the way, since we're getting rid of Section 4, is probably going to be a bit smoother. But the goal of the effective dates was to ensure that this would not apply until at least 8 years from now. So it's not that if you have your current M endorsement and your license expires next year, that you're going to have to now show proof. We were putting everyone on an 8-year cycle. And so it would be the very next time that your driver's license expired, you would then be on the 8-year cycle. And so my 8 years would start then. And I'd have to go 8 years after that. And then we wanted to make sure that we handled the folks who are getting new endorsements and how we would do that. So if you didn't currently have your endorsement and you got it after January 1, 2024, then you would go on the 8-year cycle after your next license renewal after that date. Right? Because there's some transition period. We wanted to make sure the DMV had time, again, to kind of program all this, as well as make sure that the MSF course could be stood up and grown a little bit to accommodate what we would see as, hopefully, more people taking this course than currently are taking it. If that wasn't confusing enough, just let me know.
David Bambas for the record. Yeah, so my idea was I didn't want to punish riders if they've been riding for 20 years with a ticket. So I thought if the license expires and they're still riding, they have this out that they can go take this course and not take any points on their license. But even without this retesting, I still think that if a person around my age or older was caught without a license, this will incentivize them to go and get it. And it doesn't seem that draconian that they would just run if a cop is about to pull them over and they don't have a license, that their bike will be taken. It almost rewards them for taking it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, then Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Senator Harris, and thank you so much for the presentation and your thoughtfulness. You mentioned that you broke your hand. And do you think that you only broke your hand because of the skills that you acquired during this testing? Or do you think that you only broke your hand because it was just a simple event that happened, or a you know what I mean? Help me.
David Bambas for the record. Yeah, so I'm going to just be speaking on my experience. This was about 6 months in. I think, and I can be very honest with myself, it was a skills level issue. I was at that point where riders get a little bit overly confident, riding for 6 months, they think they're cool, and then I made a turn a little bit too hard, and the course is 2 days. That's not enough time to go and learn how to ride a motorcycle in all settings. In fact, it's in a parking lot. You don't really get past second gear, and then I went off and I bought a sports bike that can go significantly faster in second gear and third gear and fourth gear. So I think it was definitely about skill level, and that's why I ended up falling. But that's also why I'm hoping this is a step in the direction that the MSF and the DOT can start to grow these courses, and then if they're going back to retesting, they are more likely to take an advanced course, because there's not just an MSF basic, there's an intermediate, there's an advanced. Right now there are initiatives to grow it into even taking it onto like racetracks. So I think nobody's going to really take those until you incentivize them to actually get it and keep going and retesting. So that was kind of like the goal of this whole thing, is I think that the course is the bare minimum necessary, but there should still be more.
I just want to say that I am so impressed with you. I think you are so humbly mature and honest, and enjoy yourself. You're going to be at University of Utah or Utah State?
I'm doing my general surgery residence at the University of Utah.
Okay, well, they're all right. My kid graduated from University of Utah. Utah State. I do hope you come back. We need young people like you, and I'm really grateful for this. This is a really amazing bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Dickman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Senator. So I just wanted to ask, what's involved in getting the permit?
Dave Bambas for the record. I went to the DMV and I took I don't remember how many question test, and then I got the permit, and then I went and rode.
And
It's just like getting a driver's license permit. You go to the DMV with the computer and they ask the basic questions that they would ask you on the first night of the MSF course.
so you have to pass this little test
Yeah.
to get your permit.
It's just like when you got your permit at the DMV for a driver's license.
And all we are doing now with this bill is if someone gets stopped without the endorsement, is they can take the course and not be in
Yeah, they
trouble
would-
anymore.
Oh, Dave Bambas for the record. Yes, they would take this course in lieu of attaining any fine or any points on their license.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's great. And I also think it would be horrible to break your hand when you're going to be a surgeon.
Dave Bambas for the record. No, my hand's fine, I promise.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? All right, seeing none at this time, thank you both very much for your presentation. Well done.
Yep. For the record, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to testimony. We'll start with testimony in support of Senate Bill 423. Anyone that wishes to provide testimony in support, please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward at this point in time, BPS, can we check the phones?
There are no callers at this time.
All right, we will move on to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 423. Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, BPS, has anybody joined us by phone?
There are no callers at this time.
And finally, we'll move to testimony in the neutral position on Senate Bill 423. Welcome. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Amy Davey. I'm the Director of the State Highway Safety Office in the Department of Public Safety. We also oversee the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course training classes that we've been talking a little bit about this afternoon. We appreciate being able to work with Senator Harris and with Mr. Bambas on this bill. We've had a lot of discussions. As you've all noted, his motivations, his intentions are very good. We're very pleased with anything that brings additional safety to our roadways. One piece of information I think the committee will find interesting, because we have a lot of statistics about how this plays out in Nevada. About 2.6% of all vehicle registrations in Nevada are motorcycles, 2.6%. But those 2.6% account for 44% of 21% of fatalities in Nevada. So there's really a disproportion there, obviously, and it's because motorcycle riders are in a very vulnerable state and are subject to their own actions and the actions of others on the road. We're happy to answer any questions about the motorcycle training program if anyone has any. We currently see about 2,500 to 3,000 people a year go through those classes. Most of them are through the community colleges. And so we'd like to see that increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we can continue conversations about this topic in the interim and explore potential additional solutions to improve motorcyclist training and hopefully lead to some better outcomes in terms of safety as well. Thank you very much. Mr. Sever, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. We are, of course, neutral on SB 423 and greatly appreciate working with the bill sponsor a lot on this bill. We did have a fiscal note on the original bill, but that would be zeroed out with the amended bill that removes the fee changes. So thanks for your time today, and we did not share any of the Assemblyman's personal information.
Thank you for that extremely important clarification. All right. Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else coming forward in the neutral position, BPS, can we check the phones to see if anyone wants to provide testimony in neutral on SB 423?
There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Senator, Mr. Bambas, any closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair Dallas Harris. For the record, I just want to thank you all for your time and interest. I am equally impressed with Mr. Banbaz, and it's been my pleasure to work with him throughout this process. I hope that we can get this young man a bill signed and into law, and I look forward to continuing to find ways to address this problem. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Bambas for closing comments.
David Bambas for the record. I'd just like to echo all of that. Thank you, Senator Harris, and thank you everybody who's helped me, and thank you guys for listening to me. This is very important to me. I want to continue the research when I go to University of Utah and continue looking into this issue. I do plan to practice surgery here in Vegas one day. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're very glad that you put that on the record. It will be in the meeting minutes. So we look forward to your return, and again, truly applaud your commitment to trying to improve the health and safety of others here in our community, and look forward to not only considering this measure, but considering additional policies and looking at that research to figure out how we can make improvements. So thank you again very much for your time. With that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 423, and I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 314, which revises provisions relating to energy storage systems. Welcome, Mr. Young, Mr. Stern. Whenever you're ready, take your time, introduce yourselves for the record, and you can begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronnie Young, for the record. With the chair's permission, I'd like to read some prepared remarks from Senator Lang.
Yes, please go ahead.
So we're going to start with some background information and then go on to the bill's summary. Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. My name is Roberta Lang, and I represent Senate District 7 in Clark County. I am pleased to be here today to present Senate Bill 314, which provides revisions relating to energy storage systems. We will be presenting with myself and Hunter Stern here from IBW 1245. Some background information would be energy storage is becoming increasingly important in today's world as we transition towards cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. In Nevada, developing energy storage systems can provide a number of benefits, including greater grid stability, reduced reliance on fossil fuels, and the ability to capture renewable energy so that it's available for a later use. Furthermore, Nevada's unique geography and the climate makes it an ideal location for energy storage installations. The state has an abundance of solar and wind resources, but these sources of energy are intermittent and cannot be relied upon 24/7. By installing electromechanical energy storage systems, excess energy can be stored during times of low demand and released during peak usage periods, helping to stabilize the grid and ensure more reliable energy supply for businesses and residents alike. However, it is crucial that any installations of electromechanical energy storage systems in Nevada are done safely and correctly. This means adhering to strict safety protocols to prevent fires and other accidents, as well as ensuring the systems are properly maintained and regularly inspected. Furthermore, proper training and licensure are essential to ensure electromechanical energy storage systems are installed safely, correctly, and to high standards. In conclusion, the development of energy storage systems in Nevada is critical for creating more sustainable energy future. With proper planning and implementation, electromechanical energy storage systems can help Nevada achieve its clean energy goals while also benefiting the residents and businesses. On to the bill summary. Senate Bill 314, as amended in the Senate, requires the Public Utilities Commissions of Nevada, the PUCN, to establish biennial targets for the procurement of energy storage systems to deliver the greatest benefit to the customers in relation to costs, instead of just progressively larger targets as previously established. The bill also repeals the obsolete provision that required the PUCN to determine whether to adopt regulations to establish biennial targets by a specific date, as these regulations have already been adopted. In addition, the bill prohibits unauthorized installations of electrical mechanical energy storage systems unless the installer holds a valid license and except for certain circumstances has completed the energy storage and microgrid training and certification program. This program is subject to review by the Joint Interim Standing Committee of Growth and Infrastructure, who could recommend authorizing certified individuals to perform or supervise installations under certain circumstances. Violations of the provisions can result in disciplinary action by the State Contractors Board. Finally, the bill revises the definition of the facility for storage of energy from renewable generation. And then I'm going to go into my remarks. So for those of you that do not know, my name is Ronnie Young. I represent the IBW Local 357 in Southern Nevada. We represent over 4,000 members, and our scope of work covers a vast scope of industrial and commercial work, from small retail space on the Strip to large-scale utility renewable energy projects. I'm here to speak to the training perspective of the ESAMTech certification that we're going to talk about today. ESAMTech, or Energy Storage and Microgrid Training Certification, is a national certification that was created by the emergence of battery storage technology within the industry. This certification was created to address dangers that come with battery storage due to the volatile nature of lithium battery malfunctions. For those of you that do not know, lithium batteries can explode, producing hot shrapnel, toxic fumes, and terrible electrical fires that come from what we call thermal runaway, where the electrical fire continues to burn for extremely long period of time, and they're very difficult to put out. Some examples of this kind of instance would be there was a neighborhood apartment fire that happened in New York earlier this year. It took almost 200 firefighters to put it out. Those very same firefighters later then testified to the news that how particularly difficult it was to put these fires out. All that damage for that apartment complex was caused by an electric scooter that malfunctioned. In California, at the Moss Landing substation, there was a 182 megawatt Tesla Megapack battery energy storage system known as the Elkhorn battery system that experienced a battery pack fire, and that resulted in that energy storage catching on fire on that project also. And then Surprise, Arizona, and Surprise is actually a location, not like an exclamation, but in Surprise, Arizona, there was a catastrophic thermal runaway event with battery storage site that ended up putting first responders in the hospital. We feel that we need to do what we can to prevent such instances happening here in Nevada. ESAMTech is about creating a safety standard across the board to ensure proper installation and maintenance as systems like this are being more and more common. In regards to renewable energy, battery storage is one of the technologies we are seeing to address the gap in energy production when arrays can no longer produce the power required. We have already installed some battery storage on some of these utility-sized solar arrays in Southern Nevada, and we are seeing the integration of these systems in upcoming projects. The IBW has recognized the importance of this in the industry, and we have already started doing training on not just in the apprenticeship itself, but we have electricians that are performing with this certification already. The training is relatively inexpensive. The cost is around $35. It's a two-day course, and it's something that's we have readily available with accessibility. We've trained over 30 teachers at the moment. But just to talk about some of the concerns that we've heard, you might hear that this is an IBW bill, that it's going to benefit us by profiting on classes, and the union contractors are trying to monopolize work in our favor. The classes are currently being taught by the IBW because we recognize the importance and safe and good quality installation in our work, but we're legally not allowed to profit from classes. We offer classes at cost, and we also offer train-the-trainer courses that would allow anyone in the industry to become an instructor for ESAMTech, and then they can train their own workforce. with no further integration of our teachers. This bill has no binding language that would make non-union shops become signatory to the union in any way, and it is open for anyone to take union or non-union. This would make it impossible for the bill to monopolize work for pretty much anybody. We have also heard that there is no accessibility to the class, or the work is already being done regardless of the certification. This class was originated from Penn State University. It came off of a grant from the National Science Foundation, and they found through this study that this was going to be an emerging issue going forward, and they created the ESAM Tech. It's currently being taught in over 20 states in various locations. And as I said before, monetarily speaking, this training is very inexpensive. We are currently meeting the demand that we've seen in the industry so far, but that's without any standards put in place. We have already trained over 250 students throughout the state, and over 30 trainers for this class as of today. And we're looking to increase the demand and meet that demand, that this bill will create. But the reality is that without safety guardrails put in place, not every electrician is trained the same. And so we're trying to create that bar that we feel like all the installations should be set to. You may also hear that this will circumvent private companies from creating their own safety programs within their own business models. There is nothing in this bill that will prevent a company to apply their own safety program in conjunction with the ESAM Tech safety training standards. And during multiple collaborations with stakeholders, we have added the amendment that would allow the state to adopt a safety standard that meets or exceeds ESAM Tech if a valid program becomes available at a later time. I'm gonna pass it off to Mr. Hunter, but in closing, this bill is about a standard of installation with these emerging technologies that we're seeing more and more, not just on utility solar, but we're gonna probably start seeing this on commercial installations. We're probably gonna see this on residential situations. So this is a safety bill through and through, and I'm gonna let Mr. Hunter continue.
Mr. Chair. My name is Hunter Stern. I'm with IBW Local 1245. Our members work for utilities, specifically NV Energy here in Nevada. They also are contractors hired by the utilities and others to perform that work. And we also have a sister Local 396 in Las Vegas that represents those same workers in the southern part of the state. Our members work for the old Sierra Pacific utility, and Local 396 works for Nevada Power. So as Mr. Young spoke about, we are most interested in safety here, and particularly for utility workers, and I'll put it in this order because it's from my perspective, I guess. Utility workers, firefighters, and then the public at large, your constituents. We want to make sure that we can make these systems as safe and as reliable as possible. And I also want to emphasize IBW supports battery storage. It is a key to making our goals, as Mr. Young spoke about. And I will add that NV Energy has been requiring ESAMTAC on its battery storage projects, or the battery storage portion of its projects, since 2018. So it's not a new system. But I did want to add that ESAMTAC is a national system. It's not a Nevada system. It's not, and as Mr. Young spoke about, it's not an IBW system at all. It was developed, and I'm going to read these because I don't want to get any of them wrong. It was developed in cooperation to meet national training and certification program and standards and codes by the National Fire Protection Association, the National Electrical Installation Standards Board, the National Electrical Code, American Standards Institute, ANSI, and the Electric Power Research Institute, and that one has to do with electric utilities. So these are all entities which look at training and certification programs on a national basis. And this is what ESAMTAC, these are the people that help develop ESAMTAC. I did want to add our concern about systems that go bad. Once you attach a battery storage system wherever it is on the grid, and that includes behind the meter of a business or a residence, but specifically businesses based on the bill, it is attached to the grid. It is part of the grid. It is a living entity onto the grid. If there is some kind of failure and power comes back out onto the grid, it could injure or kill my members. If there's some kind of failure and there's a fire, whatever the source of the fire, the firefighters are responding and they're confronted with a very, as Mr. Young explained, a very difficult fire. And then that extends obviously to your constituents, the people who might be harmed by something going wrong. So the idea of this bill is to limit the likelihood of any kind of problem by creating a certification for qualified electrical workers and electrical contractors to perform this work. And that is the key for us, and it remains the key for us. The last thing I'll cover, because I think we've been talking long enough, there are some concerns that people have raised, and we are responsive to those concerns. If there is another national program, as Mr. Young identified, we are happy to ensure that that's given a place. There is no reason or no goal or benefit to limit to any one program, but I do want to caution the idea about what that standard is. An individual manufacturer, an individual employer cannot create a certification that's going to meet the national needs and national standards without input from the kinds of groups and entities that I cited earlier. That is the way to put together a good and reliable program. And secondly, there has been a proposal recently about using the Contractors License Board as a certification agency or entity. They made it very clear to us when we went through this bill last session that they will not do that. And I appreciate that position. In other words, they will administer and ensure that the contractors and the certification programs that are passed meet that, the individuals will meet that standard, but they don't want to develop a program themselves, and I don't blame them. It does take work, and it does take expertise in areas that the Contract License Board couldn't possibly be required to understand. And this is evolving technology. There is every bit, I remember the governor was not that long ago at Redwood Materials talking about the advantages of battery storage and energy storage. We could be faced with an avalanche of these products and this equipment. And again, this will help us. We want to make sure it also that it's safely done and it keeps us all safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're ready for questions from the committee.
Thank you very much to both of you for your presentation. With that, we'll open it up to questions from members. All right, let's see. We'll start with Assemblywoman Dickman, and we'll move this way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one quick question. So this eSAMTAG training is the only place that you can get the certification is through the IBEW?
Ronnie Young for the record. Thank you for the question. No, it is not currently like IBEW exclusively. Right here in Nevada, IBEW is teaching those classes right now, but we're hoping that changes. We're hoping that, as the standard is put in place, that it'll grow with demand, so the other entities will become trainers for their own companies and then train their own workforce in that sense.
What about like vocational schools?
Penn State University, Ronnie on for the record. Penn State University was was the original founder of this course. So it is taught, in universities alike throughout the states. It's taught in over 20 different states at the moment in various locations, as I said. So, as long as someone has the training certification to teach that, then we do not think that would be limited by this bill.
One quick follow-up. Just wondering, so how do you get the certification? Who gives the certification if, like, the contractors board doesn't want to do it, or?
So, Ronnie Young for the record. So, we had some of our personal members go to a train-the-trainer course out of state, and they became certified to become trainers in eSAMTech, and then they came back and started training our members. So I believe they went to a university to get this certification, came back and started teaching our members, and that's kind of how the ripple effect works.
So they can offer the certification once you complete the class?
Running up for the record, yes. So what would happen is, if someone like wanted to become a trainer, we could teach that to the individual, and then they can go from there.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I know that we will have some questions probably in addition about the program. I know there's been questions about it in the past, so I think one thing that I'll just ask for, if you could just provide a little bit of follow-up information to the best of your knowledge about the program, and particularly the trainings that you've done. I know you referenced some of those figures in your testimony, but just providing a little background on kind of the scope of things as they stand currently in terms of how many have been trained and how many trainers have been trained. I think that would probably be beneficial for our members. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Kasama, and then we'll go to Vice Chair Brown-May.
Thank you, Chair. I think the question might have been answered. So right now, EW is the only one training in our state, but in other states, there are people training besides the electrical union, like universities and that.
Ronnie Young for the record. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's right now we're the ones doing the training right now because we recognize it as a good idea, but it is being told to multiple states by multiple different entities, schools and whatnot. So,
Great, thank you.
Hunter Stern for the record. So just as a clarification, it's the training facility that's IBW. Anybody can come in and get the training, and if they get certified through the train-the-trainer process, they too can give the training as a trainer. But it's the IBW training facility that's being used. So I think there is a little bit of confusion about that, but there's no limitation to an IBW facility or any other facility. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Vice Chair Brown-May.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know if this is a question for staff. It looks on page 5, item 3, that if the training program is not the microgrid training and certification program, that it can request a joint interim standing committee on growth and infrastructure to actually review what a training program looks like. And I'm confused between the may and the shall in that paragraph. And I just wonder if we could get clarification from staff. And I'm happy to take that offline and get into the meat of this, but I'm confused in that section.
I believe that sounds like a question for legal, and if you can maybe point to the specific lines that.
Thanks, I'm happy to. There is a may on line 6, and then there's a shall on line 10. And it looks like that they may come to the interim committee, and that the interim committee then has the responsibility to include a report.
This is Jessie Demmer with the LCB Legal Division. Right, so there's a authorization for a person who provides a similar training program to approach the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure to request the committee, as part of their work during the interim, to review the program to see if it would meet certain requirements. Every Joint Interim Standing Committee is required to prepare a report on their activities during the interim. So if the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure is approached for this, and they do that review, then they would include in their report that they're required to create, if they have a recommendation that this is something that should be included in statutes in the future, if it should be a source of future bills.
Thank you. Next, I believe Assemblyman Gurr, do you still have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I think most of them have been answered, but I'm still concerned about IBEW is training in Nevada, and IBEW certifies the people that you train.
Ronnie Young for the record. Thank you for the question. We are currently certified to teach this class. And again, to reiterate, is we're hoping that with this standard put in place, other entities are going to want it to be certified to teach this class. So then we would certify them to do such a thing for their own prospective companies. It's not a we're not monopolizing it. It's open to anyone within the industry to become trainers or certified in eSamTech.
Follow up? Sure. The eSamTech curriculum was generated by who?
Ronnie Young, for the record. The National Science Foundation provided grant money to Penn State University. Penn State University is the one that, with this grant money, they did a study to find out what would the good safety procedure should be for this type of emerging technology and developed the eSamTech. It's just something that the IBW thought was a good safety standard to implement in our training, and we felt so strongly about it that we feel like it should be a safety standard across the board.
And I appreciate that because the safety's paramount on these issues. It's just hard for me to believe that the people doing the training also do the certifying. In my business, we have trainers, we have teachers, we still have to take a course that the state certifies. Nobody in the state wants to certify that these people are able to go out and do that work?
Hunter Stern, for the record. Assembly member, I think the easiest way to explain this is that if you had gone through the certification program at Penn State, you are now certified to teach the program to anyone. And if you come back here and begin teaching it, they will be certified. I think that's the key element, that the IBW Training Center and the individuals teaching this certification program are not themselves doing the certifying. If you are a trained electrician or you are an electrical contractor in Nevada and you pass this test, you are certified, irrespective of union membership. And in fact, most obviously contractors are not themselves members or almost never members. They hire people who maybe are or are not. But if you are a trained if you are a trained and experienced electrician, you can go through the training.
And Ronnie Young, for the record, just to follow up on that also, but keeping in mind that Penn State University, an actual education institution, is the one that developed it and started the training program, that allows entities like of education, if someone wanted to become certified in like a school to teach this program, they would have that authority through that. So not necessarily do you have to be a tradesperson for this to become certified or to teach this class. Like if a company had, if a safety person that wanted to get certified to teach this, that individual would be able to teach that class.
Okay, I think I'm getting a clearer picture of it. The trainers can train me and I'm certified the minute I walk out the door, but who oversees the curriculum and the changes in curriculum, and how often is it going to change, and who are the people who understand the thing enough to be able to keep updated, and do you have to keep updating your permit, your license, your certification? How long does this go on? Forever?
Hunter Stern, for the record. So I think Chair Watts wisely asked for that information, and we will provide it in writing. And hopefully that will, because that is actually, you have hit the key question. How did this program come about and how is it maintained? And there is a standing board that was convened and continues to operate at Penn State today to update, but we will put it in writing and make sure you see it.
Thank you. I think that answered my question. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Members, additional questions? I'll just express, it's a bit of a question, a bit of a concern, and I want to start by saying I think that personally I'm in agreement that updating our targets for energy storage is important. The deployment of this technology is critical, and also that we have some training standards in place as these technologies continue to grow throughout our community, throughout the grid, that having some training requirements put into place is absolutely necessary. Just following up a little bit on the question kind of brought up by the vice chair, and it may sound strange to be speaking a bit ill of our own body, but I'm just unsure that obviously we're considering this bill with a full hearing and getting additional background. I am unsure about having the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure essentially be kind of that body. And I understand that what you've laid out, that, for example, the Contractors Board, and I don't know what other entities this could possibly be at, are not interested. I know that there might be fiscal costs if they were tasked with doing that. So I'm well aware of some of the issues of tasking another agency with determining what other types of training might also kind of meet the benchmarks to be accepted as credentials for folks doing these projects. And I really like the general idea, which is that there is a process in place for other things to get added in as training options if they meet certain standards. Again, I don't know if the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure is necessarily the best entity to do that. So that's a bit of a statement. If you want to respond to kind of how you came up with that proposal, feel free to do so.
Ronnie Young for the record. Thank you for the question. It came in the amendment. There were stakeholders that were concerned that there wasn't an outlet for them if someone wanted to develop their own training program to have it, either supersede or come equal to. So it came from that amendment, and that's what it was. It was a series of back and forths, and that's where that came from.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, as we get some of this follow-up information, we'll continue that conversation. I know, again, I understand some of the logistical difficulties in figuring that out and appreciate the concept behind that. I think there might be some additional conversation on figuring out what the best process looks like to achieve that outcome. So thank you very much. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you both very much for the presentation. We'll move on to testimony on Senate Bill 314. Welcome, Mr. Inglesby, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Todd Inglesby, President of the Professional Firefighters Nevada. We support this bill and its intent to establish standards. Electrical fires, especially when we're dealing with large voltage, are very dangerous. We learn and train to respond to these based on the standards that are in place. So when we arrive on a scene to mitigate it, we know how to handle, we know how to control the power, we know shutoffs, all that stuff. Without a consistent regulation or uniformity, puts not only my members' lives at danger, obviously our brothers and sisters at IBW, but those people that are working and residing in those buildings. So therefore we support the regulation or standardization of it, just so that way it keeps people safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Will Adler, representing IBW 1245. I just want to state that Senate Bill 314 is taking that first step that Nevada does need to take in standardizing and leveling the bar on safety installation of energy storage devices. Nevada is quickly becoming the lithium state and the sort of battery state around the nation. We've seen these interactions, especially around the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, where they've had several large lithium fires to date around the new installation and new technology being brought into these areas. So having some measure of standardization on the books would be good, just so everyone knows that everything's being done the same way, and that anyone going to any job site, any house, any residency knows has been done correctly and been done under this standard to make sure all Nevadans are safe and all energy storage is done correctly going forward. Thank you very much, and please support this bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. My name is Ryan Bellows. I'm the Vice President of Government and External Relations at NV Energy, and I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 314. For years now, NV Energy has been a leader in bringing on energy storage, and we have several large-scale battery storage projects that are being constructed now that will bring over 1,000 megawatts of battery storage online by the end of next year. One of these projects in particular in southern Nevada, Gemini Solar, is a 690 megawatt solar project with a 380 megawatt battery attached to it, which is one of the country's largest storage development, and we are using ESAMTAC certification for the folks who are installing that infrastructure. We know that as more of our renewable projects come online, and certainly with the advent of the Inflation Reduction Act and even more renewable energy projects being built and constructed in the state, battery storage is going to be a critical element to bridge the gap and be a solution to be able to have available power when these renewable projects aren't running. And so we fully support this bill. We require the ESAMTAC training, and we know that the folks who receive that training are uniquely qualified to build and construct these projects. So we urge your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Adler.
Yes, Ernie Adler on behalf of IBW 1245. I recently received an amendment talking about the idea of doing an accreditation of certification of these programs through the manufacturer, which sounds harmless until you realize that China manufactures most of these systems. So I would urge you to be very cautious about adopting that as an alternative standard. I think that we need to have one standard which is used throughout the United States and Nevada, not something that might inadvertently come through China because they're the manufacturer of the system.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Collins and I represent the National Electrical Contractors Association of Northern Nevada. We see this bill as a training standard for public safety, and we urge your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else here in Carson City, we'll go down to Las Vegas. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Wendy Newman for the record, WENDINEWMAN. Good afternoon, Chair Watts and committee members. My name is Wendy Newman. I am the Assistant Executive Director of Southern Nevada chapter of the National Electrical Contractors Association, known as NECA. As the representative for the electrical contractors that will be required to meet this standard and train our employees, we support this bill. We'd like to thank Senator Lang for her leadership and on this very important matter, and ask the committee to support SB 314. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and committee members. My name is Leslie Mujica, Executive Director. I am here on behalf of IBEW and NECA Labor Management and Cooperation Committee. I am here in support of Senate Bill 314 because both labor and management believe that it is paramount to build a safe, skilled workforce as technology, process, and systems evolve. This bill will accomplish that. I echo all the statements made by everyone in support of this bill, and thank Senator Lang for bringing this forward. We ask the committee to support Senate Bill 314.
Thank you very much. Seeing if anyone else in Las Vegas would like to testify, please come forward. In the meantime, BPS, can we see if anyone wishes to testify in support of Senate Bill 314 by phone?
To testify in support of Senate Bill 314, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide testimony in support at this time.
Thank you, BPS. We will move into opposition at this time. If anyone is in opposition of Senate Bill 314, please come forward now.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Davis, and I'm here today on behalf of the Inner West Energy Alliance. we are in opposition to SB 314. Interwest is a trade association made up of about 40 of the largest wind, solar, storage, geothermal, and transmission companies in the world doing business here in Nevada and 5 other western states. We'd like to thank Senator Lang and the bill proponents for meeting with us and listening to our concerns with the bill. We appreciate her intentions with this legislation, and Interwest shares her goal here, to build more energy storage resources here in Nevada and to build as safely as possible. SB 314 seeks to require that anyone installing a battery storage system in Nevada be certified in the SAMTAG training. We agree that installers should be well-trained, but installers already are well-trained via manufacturer and vendor certifications that comply with national standards. And there are a variety of possibilities for additional training. Our concern with requiring eSAMTAG exclusively is that the training is relatively new and not easy to access. By relying on only one private sector training program, we could create a situation where we do not have enough eSAMTAG trained installers to construct these projects. I think a lot of these concerns are brought out in the questions that you heard in the testimony here today. We've provided multiple amendments to Senator Lang and the bill proponents to this effect to try to get at this issue. Unfortunately, those amendments have not been accepted. We welcome the opportunity to continue to work with the bill proponents to reach a compromise that will allow for multiple training protocols to be accepted by the state. Unfortunately, today, we are still in opposition. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. Jessica Ferrato here today on behalf of the Solar Energy Industries Association. SEIA is the trade association for over 1,000 member companies across the United States. I'd like to echo the comments of my colleague to my left and also just highlight a few other items. Safety is of the utmost importance to the industry. We currently provide training to all installers on all products that are installed. We support training programs for our storage installers and are comfortable with eSAMTAG program being in statute, but would like to see some other options as well. To the point of my colleague to my left, I'd just like to bring up that this is not required anywhere in the country across the state. Many states are looking at the program and investing dollars into building them out, but we don't want to see limited activity for our installers because Nevada has decided that it's a clean state, that it is looking to install a lot of solar, a lot of storage. That's a goal of the utility as well, and we don't want to slow down these projects or create bottlenecks so that we can't get these projects into the ground. We would recommend that the state look at another option that would allow for other training programs to be certified and have no issues with these certifications being done at the state level. We want to thank Senator Lane for the work that she's done with us, but still remain concerned based on a lot of these provisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition in Las Vegas? Seeing none, BPS, will you check the phone lines for anyone in opposition?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 314, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. My name is Gabriela Olmedo, O-L-M-E-D-O. I'm an associate at Advanced Energy United, a clean energy business association working to make the energy we use clean, affordable, and reliable. We represent over 100 companies across the clean energy spectrum, such as large-scale renewables, solar, energy efficiency, and those involved in manufacturing, developing, and installing electrochemical energy storage systems. I'm here today in opposition to SB 314. While we are supportive of safe, robust training, this bill requires a new private training program, the eSAMTAG, for all installers of electrochemical energy storage systems in Nevada. This program is not required for installers in any other state. We believe that it's premature to impose an inflexible requirement for this one specific training program on installers, and we're concerned that it will create a bottleneck for the development of clean and reliable resource that is important to help Nevada serve its residents with affordable, reliable energy. To avoid this bottleneck, there needs to be an alternative compliance pathway via manufacturer or vendor trainings of their specific and proprietary storage systems, or other programs certified by a state agency with expertise in workforce training. The bill before you contemplates the review of alternative training programs by the Interim Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, which we do not believe is an appropriate venue to review and assess highly technical workforce programs for their competencies or curricula. Furthermore, we do not think that the state should be outsourcing its workforce training entirely to one private program, especially in that program's very early days of existence. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. BPS, are there any other callers on the line in opposition?
There are no other callers at this time.
Thank you. Let's move into neutral. Is there anyone here to offer testimony in neutral on this measure? Anyone in Las Vegas? Seeing none. BPS, anyone in neutral on the phone lines?
There are no other callers to provide testimony in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Would you like closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just wanted to say thank you for your time and the hard work of this committee, and I can appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. I appreciate you. At this time, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 314. And we will move into public comment. Is there anyone here to offer public comments or in Las Vegas? Please come forward. Seeing no movement, BPS, do we have anybody on the phone lines for public comment?
To provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Well, that concludes our meeting for today, and we are adjourned.